We asked our Instagram followers who is the best Dimir commander, and we can now tell you the top 10 best Dimir commanders in MTG 2023 update. Just making it onto the list we have Phenax, God of Deception. Originally printed in 2014's Born of the Gods, Indestructible Phenax says as long as your devotion to blue and black is less than 7, it isn't a creature. Creatures you control have tap to make target player mill X, where X is that creature's toughness. First off, let's talk toughness. We are throwing in every creature that has all of the toughness. The higher it is, the more it deserves a place in this deck. Shout out Tree of Perdition. We also have plenty of those creatures with that asterisk toughness for an ever growing total, so those of course are welcome here too. Then, the second part of these decks often lean even more into that mill, through instants, sorceries, artifacts and everything else in between. And with some cards that mill half your opponent's decks or more, there's every chance that before you know it, your opponents will be milled faster than you can subscribe to Gathering the Magic.
Don't forget to like and subscribe!
Before we get on to number 9, make sure when you're signing up to Card Market to use our referral code Gathering-the-Magic and shout out to StoreNet for using our code. And if you're looking for the best playmats in the game, check out Paramount. And if you use our link in the description below, you'll get 30% off all playmat designs. My current playmat that I use for my games is their Blood Moon Torii Gate design. So fresh, great design, you love to see it. Moving on to number 9, we have Lord of the Nazgul. Recently printed in the LOTR commander set, Wraiths you control have protection from Ring Bearers. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a 3/3 Wraith token with Menace. Then if you control 9 or more Wraiths, Wraiths you control have base power toughness at 9/9 until end of turn.
9/9!
These decks tend to go cantrip crazy. We're going to be doing things, then drawing a card. Make sure our hand is always filled to play those cheap to cast instants and sorceries over and over again. Remember, the more of those instants and sorceries we play, the more Wraiths we play, and the sooner we get to that big 9 and then start turning that army into 9 9/9s.
9/9!
It's a small but growing creature type. With 12 available and another Wraith creature creator available, we can have many Wraiths that will hopefully get that 9/9 treatment. Have that big wide army and stomp all over our opponents for the win.
9/9!
Next on the list we have Umbris, Fear Manifest. Printed in 2021's Crimson Vow commander set, Umbris gets +1/+1 for each card your opponents own in exile. Whenever Umbris or another Nightmare or Horror ETB is under your control, target opponent exiles card from the top of their library until they exile a land card. First of all, we're starting with everything exile. Within Magic we have hundreds and hundreds of ways to exile our opponent's cards. We don't want to just stick to exile through horrors though. The more cards in exile, the stronger Umbris gets, so the more exiling the better. But of course, part 2 of the deck is to make sure all creatures involved are those Nightmare or Horror creatures. Surprisingly, with over 300 horror creatures and nearly 30 horror token creature creators, this is a deck that should easily fill up fast and you can go exiling crazy. And did you know that before 2010, exile was simply known as removed from the game? Welcome to Learning with Lewis. In at number 7 we have Captain Nigathrod. Originally printed in Commander Legends D&D set, horrors you control have Menace. Whenever a horror you control deals combat damage to a player, that player mills that many cards. At the beginning of your end step, choose target artifact or creature card in an opponent's graveyard that was put there from their library this turn. Put it onto the field under your control. Similar to Umbris, we're going all out horrors here. The Captain Pirate gives all of our horrors Menace, so the more we get on the field, the harder they'll be to block, the more combat damage we'll be doing, and the more milling we'll be doing. Speaking of milling, we want the maximum milling madness possible. The more cards we can get into our opponent's graveyards, not only are we giving them less cards to play, but even more to steal at the beginning of our end step. And in EDH, the options of cards that you could potentially steal are beyond devilishly disgusting. Narrowly missing out on the top half, we have Anawan, the Ruin Thief. Printed just the once in the Zendikar Rising command set, Anawan gives other rogues you control +1/+1. Whenever one or more rogues you control deal combat damage to a player, that player mills a card for each 1 damage dealt to them. If a player mills at least 1 creature card this way, draw a card. Of course we have one route to go in a rogue themed deck, and that is all out rogues. Rogues in Magic have been around for decades, and with nearly 500 printed and almost 70% covering those Dimir colours, the options we have here are nearly endless. Rogues are super sneaky too, plenty that steal our opponent's cards, stop us from drawing cards and everything else to make this a deck that's hard to deal with once it starts gaining steam. Being the face of one of these Zendikar precons, this is a perfect, affordable beginner commander, and one that can get to a higher power level with just a couple of upgrades.
Man, I hate those guys.
Next on up we have Toxrill the Corrosive. First printed in 2021's Innistrad Crimson Vow, at the beginning of each end step, put a slime counter on each creature you control. Creatures you don't get -1/-1 for each slime counter on them. When a creature you don't control dies with a slime counter on it, create a 1/1 slug token. You can also sack a slug to draw a card. A few ways to go here. The first is to lean into those -1/-1 counters. Cards that will proliferate the counters our opponents already have, cards that will double the -1/-1 counters whenever they're placed, and a bunch more, meaning our opponent's creatures will be hitting the graveyard in double or triple time, allowing us to get a big slug army and generally be all around hard to deal with. And whilst we have a bunch of proliferating options, these can go hand in hand with an infecting theme. Infect our opponents, proliferate those infect tokens, and potentially take out our opponents before we even take out their creatures. This is definitely one of those Marmite commanders. This is one that is either loved or hated. Very hated. Just missing out on the bronze medal spot, we have the Scarab God. At the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses X life and you scry X, where X is the number of zombies you control. You can pay to exile target creature from a graveyard, create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a 4/4 zombie. These decks go all out zombies. The more zombies we have, the more chaos and scrying we're doing on our upkeep, so having an army of the undead is key. A creature type I think we're sure to mention again later in the video, zombies are very common within the world of MTG. So far having nearly 600 different creatures and a ridiculously big 195 ways of creating tokens of them. And as around 85% of these fall into the Dimir colours, this is a deck with plenty of options. A brilliantly evil commander that can also create copies of creatures in other opponents' graveyards. This is one that whilst isn't the cheapest to purchase, it is one that can provide plenty of fun and mayhem. For the third best commander we have Satoru Umezawa. Originally printed in 2022's Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, whenever you activate a ninjutsu ability, look at the top 3 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library, triggering once per turn. Each creature card in your hand has ninjutsu cost 2 and Dimir. Similar to another popular Dimir commander, maybe is coming up, Satoru loves everything ninjutsu. First off, we want unblockable creatures or cheap flyers to make sure we have unblocked attackers that we can then ninjutsu in. Then we throw in plenty of ninjutsu loving cards to start causing all of the chaos. The best thing is Satoru gives all creatures in your hand ninjutsu, so this means you can be throwing in disgustingly powerful creatures, endgame monsters and all sorts to get a barrage of value. Why pay 11 mana for a creature when you could pay just 4? This is my personal favourite of the cards in this list, and one that maybe one day I'll make into my own EDH commander.
I don't think you will.
Runner up and the second best commander, we have Wilhelt the Rot Cleaver. First printed in the Midnight Hunt Commander Precon, whenever another zombie you control dies, if it didn't have Decayed, create a 2/2 zombie token with Decayed. At the beginning of your end step, you may sack a zombie. If you do, draw a card. Similar to the Scarab God, this is another commander that loves those zombies, so we won't spend too long talking about this zombie warrior. But the aim of the game is to have everything zombie. Zombie creatures, zombie token makers, zombie cheapness and everything else to make sure we can sack a zombie at our end step, draw some cards and always be getting value from old Willy Rot.
What did he say?
Another precon commander and one that was so close to the top spot, but let's be honest, there was always going to be one winner here. One sneaky commander. Winner and the best Dimir commander is Yuriko the Tiger Shadow. Originally printed in the 2018 Commander set, Yuriko has Commander Ninjutsu. Whenever a ninja you control deals combat damage to a player, reveal the top card of your library and put that card into your hand. Each opponent loses life equal to that card's mana value. She was top of the list over 2.5 years ago, and she was always going to keep that spot many years later. We know the script, Yuriko and Ninjutsu go hand in hand. We want every Ninjutsu card we have. More ninjutsu triggers with that extra dirty one from Yuriko herself. We want Yuriko's triggers to be happening at every one of our combats, so having cards to rearrange the top of our deck and know what's coming will help Yuriko drain your opponent's life quicker than you can say, Yuriko the Tiger Shadow is the best Dimir commander in MTG. There we have it, that is the top 10 Dimir list. Thank you so much for watching and don't forget to like, share and subscribe for all things MTG. Check out our link tree for all of our social media and affiliate links. For now though, I'm all tapped out, so I'll see you in the next video.